the Jews. Oh, there we go. The recording is started again. Once again, this is Yitzchok ben Eliezer. We're on Daf Beis Amid Beis. Okay, and the Gemara asked the question here, which we're just reviewing. It wants to know, how do we know that there's a reading on the 15th? So Rava says, because the pasuk says, therefore the Jews who lived in the open cities, should read it on the 14th. And since the open cities read it on the 14th, the walled cities must be the ones who read it on the 15th. So the Gemara wanted to know, and it said, wait a minute, maybe it means that the open cities should read on the 14th, but the walled cities don't read it at all. So the Gemara said, what kind of question, what kind of opinion is that?
Right.
The walled cities are also Jews, right? And the pasuk said, "Hold about Kush," and we explained that last week. So he said, well, maybe the open cities read it on the 14th, and the walled cities, they can read it whenever they want. Maybe on the 14th, or maybe both on the 14th and on the 15th. Like it says, they should do the 14th of the month of Adar and the 15th in that month every year. So he said, yeah, if it would have said Es Yom Arba Asar V'Chamisha Asar, then it would have meant you had to do both. But since it says Es Yom Arba Asar and the 15th, the S comes and divides them up. The open cities are on the 14th, the walled cities are on the 15th. That on the top line of the wide lines now, the Gemara says maybe it means that the open cities are on the 14th and the walled cities, it's a question. If they want, they can read it on the 14th. If they want, they can read it on the 15th. This is a review of what we learned last week. Mm-hmm. So the pasuk says, no, bismanei hem. I'm going to enlarge it just a little bit more, just a little bit, because we're going to read the Rashi in a minute. Okay, because the pasuk says, manei hem. Manei hem means plurals. Zmano shel zeh, lo kizmano shel zeh. The two times are not the same, right? So maybe it refers to the 13th. So the Gemara said, it can't be the 13th, because Shushan, who was not on the 13th. Okay, so the Gemara now asks the next question, which we learned last week, and this is where we're really up to. We find that you have to make a party and drink wine and say, read the Megilah, and not read the Megilah, and send Shalach Manas, and give Matanas Lev. That's Asiyah. How do we know Zechira? How do we know you have to read the Megilah? So he says, because it says in the pasuk, and there's a pasuk in the Megilah, and these days are remembered and done. Remembrance means saying it, like Zochar es asher asalacha Amalek. In order to remember what Amalek did, you have to read what Amalek did. Zochar es Yom HaShabbos Lekadsho. You have to say Kiddush in order to do remembrance. Watch the little hand here. This Karim Nasim. So the pasuk is Iskish L'Chila L'Siyah. We compare remembrance to the doing, and therefore, just as the doing is on 2 different days, so is the Zechira on 2 different days, and the people in the unwalled cities read it on the 14th, and the people in the walled cities read it on the 15th. Okay, good. Now we go to the new Gemara. Masnisin, the local.
Rabbi, yeah. Where are we at in the wide lines?
We are now 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 lines down in the wide lines. Second to last.
The hand there.
My hand is right there on the. On
yeah,
the
but screen. I have my own Gemara.
Okay, good. Masnisin, that's what we're up to.
Okay, got it.
Says the Gemara, Masnisin delo ki hai Tana. Our Mishnah does not go like the Tana of the following Brisa. The Tanya, because we learn the Brisa, Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha Omer, Rabbi Yeshua, the son of Karcha, says, and there's a big question in Shas, in a number of places in Shas, who was Karcha? Okay, all right. Some say it was Rabbi
Akiva.
Okay, not sure. Okay, but Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says, Krachin amukafin chomer mimos achashveiros. Oh, he's got a different shita. We have a brayso that Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha said that walled cities that were walled from the time of Achashveiros, Korin Bachamisha Osir. They read it on the 15th. Okay. Now the Gemara wants to know, my time of Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. Where did Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha get this? That walled cities from the time of Achashveiros read it on the 15th. Remember, our Mishnah said walled cities from whose time?
Oh, sure.
Yeshua ben
For
Nun.
sure. For sure.
Our Mishnah said walled cities from the time of Yoshua ben Nun. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, he's coming up with a new idea. He's saying that walled cities in the time of Achashverosh, read it on the 15th. So Gemara wants to know, my time of the Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, where did he get his logic from? Where did he get it from? That walled cities, read it on the 15th. See, he says Ki Shushan. He gets it from the fact that we compare it to the city of Shushan. Ma Shushan Mukef Eschome Mimos Achashverosh. Just like Shushan had a wall around it in the time of Achashverosh. Pay attention to that, guys, right?
Yeah.
Just like Shushan had a wall around it in the time of Achashverosh, V'korah Chamisha Osar, and reads it on the 15th. Af kol shemukef eschoma mimos Achashverosh. So too, every other walled city throughout the world that's surrounded by a wall from the days of Achashverosh, Korin b'chamisha Osar, reads it from Chamisha on the 15th. Okay, so there's machlokas between our Tana, who says you read it on the 15th from Yoshua ben Nun's time, and the Brisa, which says you read it on the 15th from the time of Achashverosh. So the Gemara asks, the Tana Didon. So our Tana, my timer, what's the reason that he says that we read it on the 15th from the time of Yoshua ben Nun? So he says, Yalef Prozi Prozi. We learn it out from a Gzeira Shava. Gzeira Shava means two words that are the same. The word Prozi in one place, the word Prozi in another place. Now, normally, pay attention to what I say. Normally, when we make a Gzeira Shava, we make a Gzeira Shava from two psukim in the Torah. Notice that we're about to learn the Gzeira Shava from the Megilah to the Torah.
Wow.
We don't normally think of that as a Gzeira Shava. But the Gemara is pointing out to us what we discussed at the very beginning of this Mesechta, in which we learned, and I spoke it out at the beginning of the Mesechta, that the Megilah was the bridge between Torah Shebeksav and Torah Shebal Peh. The Megilah was the very last sefer that was accepted as part of the Sifrei Tanakh.
Yeah. Oh, before the Gemara. Right before the Gemara.
Sure, before the Gemara. It was before. It was between the first and second Beis Hamikdash.
Right.
So in making Gzeira Shava, and this is why this is why the Megilah is so powerful, because you can actually learn from psukim, and that's why this entire first parak of Mesechta Megilah is limudim from psukim, which demonstrate the power of Chazal, that it tells us that the Megilah was just like a Sefer Torah in many ways. Because I'm darshaning, and here comes the drasha. The drasha, watch my hand over here, because it says, Ksiv Ocha. It says here in the Megilah, Al Kain, therefore, HaYehudim, this is in Perik, where's it? Tes or Yud? Perik Tes, right? Al Kain, HaYehudim, Aprazim. Therefore, the Jews who lived in open cities, Hayoshvim ba'orei prazos, who live in the open cities, they read it on the 14th, right? Uksiv Osam, and in the pasuk in Devarim, in Perek Gimel, when it talks about all the cities of Eretz Yisrael, it says, Levad me'orei aprazi arbei ma'od. The Jews captured many, many cities that had walls. And besides that, there were open cities that they captured. Many, many cities. So we see that in the Torah, it calls an open city a prazi, and in the Megilah, it calls an open city a prazi. Now, when the Torah was talking about the capturing of the open cities, says the Gemara, just like at the time of the capture of the Jews of all the open cities, after Moshe Rabbeinu died, when Yoshua ben Nun led them into Eretz Yisrael. That was open cities in the time of Yoshua ben Nun. Afkan mukefes choma. I'm sorry. So the walled cities were from the time of Yoshua ben Nun. Afkan mukefes choma mimos Yoshua ben Nun. Okay, there's the Gzei Shava. Because in the Torah it talks about the walled cities and it talks about Yoshua ben Nun. And so in the Megilah, when it talks about the walled cities, it must also be from Yoshua ben Nun. Okay, we go further. The Gemara now begins to analyze. Bishlama, everything works out great. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, that the Brisa of Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, in which he learns it out from the time of Achashverosh, lo amar katana didan. I understand why he doesn't agree with our Tana, who learns it out that it must be from the time of Yoshua ben Nun, right? Because the Leslie Prazi. Our Tana learns out from the time of Yoshua ben Nun using the Gzei Shava from the Megilah to the pasuk in the Torah, that just like in the Torah, when it talks about the walled and unwalled cities, it's in the time of Yoshua ben Nun, so too in the Megilah, when it talks about the walled and unwalled cities, it means from the time of Yoshua ben Nun, and the Brisa did not have that Gzei Shava, and we've learned many, many times, you cannot make a Gzei Shava on your own. So he didn't have that Gzei Shava, but our Tana did. Ella Tana didon, but our Tana, why doesn't why doesn't my time Yeshua ben Karcha? Why didn't he learn it out like Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha? And Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha was learning it out from the fact that just like Shushan was Mukefes Chom at the time of Achashverosh, so too we should only read from Shushan that was walled at the time of Achashverosh. Notice, Rabbosai, Shushan was not walled at the time of Yoshua ben Nun. Shushan was not walled at the time of Yoshua ben Nun. It was walled at the time of Achashverosh, but it wasn't walled at the time of Yoshua ben Nun. So, what's the reason our Tana doesn't go like Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha? My timer, I'll tell you why. The Islay Prazi. Our Tana is learning out the Gzei Shava of Prazi in Yoshua ben Nun's time to the Prazi in Achashverosh's time. So we can learn it out from Yoshua ben Nun, right? So what are you asking me where I learned it from? So I'll tell you, it is what I meant to say. Elo Shushan, my question is on Shushan itself. The Avad Keman. Who does Shushan go like? Lo Kiprozin, not like the open cities, which read it on what day?
On the 14th.
14. The Lo Kimukofin, and not like the walled cities, which read it on what day?
15th.
But the 15th from the time of Yoshua ben Nun.
Yeah.
And Shushan did not have a wall at the time of Yoshua ben Nun.
Uh,
So who does he go like? He doesn't go like our Tana, who learns the Gzei Shava, and he can't learn it out from the time of Yoshua ben Nun from the fact that it was in Shushan itself, because Shushan didn't have a wall at the Yoshua ben Nun's time. So where does he get the idea that the walled city should be reading on the 15th? The Gemara answers Amarav is simple. The Amalat Kadi, some say the famous Rabbi Kadi said it, right? Shiny Shushan. Shushan, you can't put in any category. Hoel v'naseba nes. Because Shushan is where the miracle took place. And since Shushan is where the miracle took place, it's not going to be the same as Yoshua ben Nun, like our Tana. And he doesn't need Gzei Shava because Shushan is unique in the fact that at the time of Achashverosh, it did have a wall, even though it didn't have a wall at the time of Yoshua ben Nun. So the Gemara just went through an entire discussion of where we know that Shushan reads it on the 15th, and we read it on the 15th, and all cities that were walled from Yoshua ben Nun read it on the 15th, but the only one that was not walled at the time of Yoshua ben Nun that reads it on the 15th is Shushan. Why? Because Shushan is where the miracle took place. Okay. So Gemara analyzes again. And let's follow here with what's the little hand. Bishlama Latana Didan. Everything works out good according to our Tana. That it's from the time of Yehoshua ben Nun. Hainu Diksiv. That's why the pasuk in Megillah Esther says, Medina Medina, Ve'ir Va'ir. It says that each Medina, each government, larger picture, Medina would be like New York State. Ve'ir would be like New York.
Yeah.
New York City, New York. Okay.
Yeah.
I understand why it says Medina Medina, Ve'ir. Why? Medina Medina is written to tell us a Medina means a government, a whole state. Lechalek bein mukafan chomem Yeshua ben Nun, to separate between walled cities at the time of Yeshua ben Nun, lemukefes chomem mimos Achashverosh, and walled cities in the time of Achashverosh. I know I need Medina and Medina to separate between walled cities at the time of Yeshua ben Nun and walled cities at the time of Achashverosh. There are some walled cities that were walled at the time of Yehoshua ben Nun, but were not walled at the time of Achashverosh. And there were some walled cities that were walled at the time of Achashverosh, but were not walled at the time of Yehoshua ben Nun. The only one that's going to be exception to that rule is Shushan. And that's why Nami, I need the word also, Lechalek bein Shushan l'shar hayoros, to tell us the difference between Shushan, which didn't have a wall at the time of Yehoshua ben Nun, but did have a wall at the time of Achashverosh, and every other is not going to read it on the 15th if it had a wall at the time of Achashverosh, unless it had a wall at the time of Yehoshua ben Nun. Let's get this clear, Rabbi said. If a city was walled at the time of Yehoshua ben Nun, whether it had a wall at the time of Achashverosh or not is irrelevant. You're going to read it on the 15th. If a city did not have a wall at the time of Yehoshua ben Nun, even if it had a wall at the time of Achashverosh, it's still going to read it on the 14th. With one exception, Shushan.
Yeah.
And why? Because the miracle took place in
Shushan.
Right. So that's good. That's good according to our Tana. He separates between Medina and Va'ir. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. But according to Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, Bishlama Medina, he's got to have the words Medina to teach us L'chalek bein Shushan l'shar hayoros, to separate between Shushan and all other cities, because Shushan did not have a wall at the time of Yehoshua ben Nun, but it did have a wall at the time of Achashverosh. And since it had a wall at the time of Achashverosh, and Shushan was unique, therefore it's going to read on the 15th, while all other cities are going to read on the 14th. Why do we need the word ir? According to Yehoshua ben Karcha, Lumai Asa, what does it come to teach us? We don't learn anything from that, because every city is going to be reading on the 14th. Answer the Gemara. Amar l'cha Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. He says, you think it's so good according to our Tana? Even the Islay Prozi, since our Tana has Xavier Shava of open cities at the time of Yehoshua ben Nun, and open cities at the time of the miracle in Purim, so if that's the case, Medina Lamali, why does he need Medina? There's no difference. There's no difference. He learns out Shushan from a different source. Why does he need the words Medina? Ella, rather, he needs it for a different drasha. Watch this. Kro the drasha Uda also. That pasuk is coming to teach a special drasha. Okay, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, and like the teaching of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, who the Asa. That's what it's come to teach. So Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, because Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, and here's a halacha that we're going to see the halacha in a minute in Tafei Sadeches. We're going to look at it in a minute. Krach, a walled cities. Now the word krach, many of you are probably familiar with the word krichos b'shus harabim. Remember, we learned that Nela Mitzias, Kricha is Mishus Arabim.
Yeah.
Right? What's Krichos? Bundles.
One right.
A bundle is something that's surrounded by a bear. A krach is therefore a city that's surrounded by a wall. Okay. Krach, a walled city. L'chol asamuch lo, and any city which is next to it. I didn't hear a question. I was sure I was going to get a question at this point.
Say it again.
A walled city and
Right.
any city that's near it. No question?
Mhm.
What's near?
What's in there?
What's considered near?
Oh.
Yeah.
Touch right next to it.
Okay. How distant?
Oh. On the border. On the border.
That has to be touching?
No.
No. So how close? Is Westchester a separate city of New York?
It's county.
It's a different county.
Yeah, I
Gotcha.
know, but is it right next to New York City? Is there a separation of a river?
No.
No.
Yeah, good point.
What about Riverdale? Is that
Right.
part of New York?
Yeah.
New York City?
No.
Yes, it is. It's part of New York
It's
City.
about New City?
Yeah.
Bronx. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bronx. Yeah.
So what's considered near? Huh? Nobody asked it. Okay. So we won't bother with it. Let's go. So he says, Krach, v'chol hasamachlo, a walled city and anyone that's near it, v'chol hanire imo, and any city that appears with it, or that is seen with it. Wait a minute. If you go on top of Har Nof in Jerusalem, or better yet, if you go on top of any of the cities to the south of Yerushalayim, and you look south, do you know you could see the Dead Sea? You can see Yericho. Yeah, you can see Beit Lechem. Does that mean that all these cities are just like Yerushalayim? Because you can see it? Again, this is a very nebulous measurement. We don't see a definite measurement. We say it's krach, every walled city, b'chol hasamachlo, anything that's near to it, b'chol hanire imo, and anyone that appears with it, nidon kekrach, is judged like it's part of the walled city, and therefore would read it when?
15.
The 15th. And the Gemara now asks, Ad Kama. Oh, now the Gemara asks the question. How far away? How much? Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, the Itema Rabbi Chia bar Abba. Along came Rabbi Yirmiyah, and some say it was said by Rabbi Chia bar Abba. Kemei Chamsan l'Tveria mil. The distance between the city of Chamsan and the city of Tveria. All right? Which is 1 mil. How big is a mil? Anybody know how big a mil is?
Oh, yeah.
2,000 amas.
2,000 amas. There you go. 2,000 amas by the Chazon Ish's measurement would be how many feet?
4,000 feet.
4,000 feet. About how much? 4/5 of a mile. Right? A mile is 5,280 feet.
Yeah.
4/5 would be about 4,000 feet, about 4/5 of a mile. The distance from Chamsan to Tveria, a mil. Asks the Gemara, wait a minute. You told me that Rabbi Chia bar Abba said the distance from Chamsan to Tveria is the measurement of how far away a city is going to be in order to be counted like the walled city, and that's the distance from Chamsan to Tveria, mil, the lema mil. So why didn't you just say a mil? Why did you give me two cities, Chamsan and Tveria? Why didn't you give me a mil? Tell me a mill.
Hmm.
You tell me 2 cities. Now I got to go measure the 2 cities to find out how much is the distance. Why don't you just tell me the measurement? The Gemara answers, "Oh, Kamash Malon," he's letting you know a chiddush here. The Shiur, the mill, that the measurement of the mill, kama ava, how much is a mill? Because you could say, oh, it's a mill. What's a mill? 2,000 amas. But that doesn't help me. Why? What don't I know? If I say something's 2,000 amas away, that doesn't help me. I still don't know what.
How far 2,000 hours?
No,
Oh.
2,000 amas.
Yeah, you
What-
know, okay.
What don't I know? I don't know how big an amma is,
Oh,
right?
yeah, okay.
Okay. So he's telling you it's from Chamsa to Tveria mill, right? Velema mill, or Kamashmalan, the Shiur, the mill, Kama Have, how big is a mill? Kame Chamsin to Tveria. From Chamsin to Tveria. That's how big a mill is. Okay, we'll come back to this in a minute. Let's go to the Rashis and finish that up first. And then we'll come back and discuss this a little bit more. Okay. All right. The Rashi is going to be picked up by the Iskish Zechira La'asiyah. We compare the remembering to the doing. Malahalim Mimos Yeshua. Velo Garsin and Malahalim Mukaf and Choma Mimos Yeshua. The Prozim Lo Ha'avu Mukaf and Choma Ninhu. The Prozim were not walled cities. So it's just the gears that change here. Af Kami Mos Yeshua. Af Prozim Ha'omar Kan. The Maisa Haman. So the word Prozim in the Maisa Haman, the Prozi the Yeshua Ka'omar, is talking about the open cities at the time of Yeshua. Va'af al gav de la'achar kei nasa mukav. And even though after that they became walled cities, have a Prozim le'inyan Megilah. In terms of Megilah, they're open cities. If you have a city that didn't have a wall at the time of Yehoshua, even if it had a wall later, it's still considered an open city. Okay, did New York have a wall around it at the time of Yehoshua? No. Okay, so therefore, did Seagate have a wall around it?
I was about to say Seagate.
Did Seagate have a wall around it at the time of Yehoshua? No. So even though Seagate has a wall around it now, it doesn't read on the 15th. It reads it only on the 14th. Okay. Prazi means, remember what we commented when we said it's Xavier Shava from the Torah to the Megilah?
Yeah.
Remember the comment? Right? What's the comment? This is unusual, Xavier Shava. Normally, Xavier Shava is only from one Torah to the other. Right? He's telling us, says Rashi, Lo Gomir Xavier Shava made Abe. The other Tana did not learn the Xavier Shava from his Rebbe. The Ein Adam Don Xavier Shava made Atzmo. Ella Imkain Kibla made Rabo. The only time you can make a Xavier Shava is if your Rebbe said it. If your Rebbe didn't say it, you can't learn the Xavier Shava. So Gemara said, no. Here's what I meant to say. Shushan, of the Kiman, who does Shushan go like? Because if you learn the Xavier Shava, Prazi, Heich Osu, Osan Sheva Shushan, Betes Vav, how did the people at Shushan make Purim on the 15th? For Prazi, that's an open city. The Inan Bo She Hukva Mimos Yeshua. Nobody has any evidence whatsoever that Shushan had a wall around it at the time of Yoshua ben Nun. So as far as we're concerned, that's an open city. So why do we read it on the 15th? Right? So he says, I'll tell you why. Oh, Vinasa Bones, followed a little hand, because that's when the miracle took place. Shenitan lahem gam mocher lasos kedas ayom. You take a look at the Megilah. They asked Achashverosh for permission to do on the 15th what the Jews in the open cities did on the 14th, and Achashverosh gave them permission. La rog b'son am shnei yamin, to kill their enemies on 2 different days. Imagine that. Achashverosh gave the Jews permission to kill the Persians on the extra day. Promise. The nice, unbelievable, right? Right? Al karchan lo nochu tezvah. Therefore, they aren't at least they rested on the 15th. V'chein kavu aladoras, and so they set it up for all time like that. Okay. Now the next question: Medina u'Medina ir ve'ir. Why do you need all those expressions? Gabe zechira v'asiya ksiv. By the remembrance and the doing, it says by Yom Va'eles Karvinasim. These days are remembered and done. Mashma Medina u'Medina kiminhaga. Each Medina according to its minhag. Ve'ir kiminhaga. And each city according to its minhag. Lamadnu. This we learn. Sheyesh minhag chaluk b'medinos. There was a different minhag in various medinas. U'minhag chaluk be'ayaras. And different minhagim in various cities. L'chalek bein Shushan l'sh'ar ayaros. To separate between Shushan and other cities. Va'af al pi sha'af hi b'chlal prazim. Even though Shushan was an open city at the time of Yehoshua ben Nun, Hukba of Tezvav, it was nevertheless established to be Purim on the 14th. Okay. The Gemara asks, to separate between the walled cities at the time of Achashverosh, the She'emu Kavin was Achashverosh, and those who were not walled at the time of Achashverosh. Why is it mentioned two separate cities? All open cities were the same, and all walled cities are the same. He said, no, it goes like Yeshua ben Levi. We're not talking about a difference between them. Here's what he meant to say. Every city which was near a particular community is judged like that community. And any city which is near the walled city, Nidon Kakrach, V'korin v'tezvav asamach, Af al gaf, she'eno nire, Af al pi she'eno b'samach. The comment. That's the way it explained later on. Any city that's near, even if it couldn't be seen, any city that's seen, even if it's not considered near. We'll see this in the halacha in a minute. Ad kama, chashav lo samach. How far is samach considered? Remember the answer? 1 mil. 1 mil. 1 mil. So, okay, the Gemara asks, let's end off this with the following. The Gemara asks, okay, so why don't you say a mil? Why do you have to tell me from Chamsin to Tveria? And what the Gemara answer? I'm letting you know another piece of information. The distance between Chamsin and Tveria is 1 mil. Okay. So the distance from Chamsin to Tveria is 1 mil, 4,000 feet, 2,000 amas. A mil is 2,000 amas, 4,000 feet. That's, you letting me know, by the way, but we have a problem. We don't know how big an amma is. So it still requires some discussion. By the way, are you familiar with a discussion about how big an amma is? Can you think of any situation where the question of how big an amma is comes into play?
Shabbos? No.
Where in Shabbos?
Dalamos.
Right?
Dalamos.
Okay, where else?
On Shabbos?
Okay, on Shabbos. Okay, where else with Shabbos? Tchum Shabbos.
No Shabbos, right?
Right? How big is Tchum Shabbos? Look at Rabbanan. 2,000 amas.
How much?
2,000 amas.
2,000 amas.
About 4,000 feet, right?
Right.
Where's another daily occurrence of the size of an amma? Every day of the year.
Every day of the year?
Every day of the year.
Can't walk down almost.
That's pretty good. Okay.
without
Got a head covering. Okay, that's pretty good. I didn't think
Yeah,
that.
okay, oh, okay.
That's good. That's good, Mordechai.
Okay,
Another one?
okay.
Another one?
No.
Tzitzis.
Yeah, I was going to say that. That's my choice.
How big do tzitzis have to be? It's got to be a beged.
Right.
What's the size of a beged? Minimal.
4
An
by 4.
amma by an amma.
Right.
1 amma wide, 1 amma long. In the front and in the back.
Yeah.
So what's the minimum size of tzitzis?
Oh, 4.
What?
2.
To what?
2 amas. It should be 4.
Actually, only 1 amma.
1 amma.
1 in the front, 1 in the back.
Okay.
Now the question is, how big is an amma?
Oh.
So there are 2 opinions. There's 3. 2 major and the third major. What are the 2 major opinions? So one major opinion is the opinion of Rav Avram Chaim Noah. Rav Avram Chaim Noah was a great, great posek in the last century. And Rav Avram Chaim Noah came up with the measurement of an amma to be 18 inches.
Right.
1.5 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Why? The measurement from your elbow
Elbow to your
to
middle
the
finger.
tip of your middle finger
That's
on an
18.
average person is 18 inches. All right, everybody get out your rulers. Let's go.
I'm below average.
And after the Shiur, go measure.
Okay.
It's pretty close to 18 on an average person.
Okay.
Okay, good. I guess there are some basketball spielers that are a little more, right? Right? And there are some that are shorter people that are a little less. But generally speaking, it's about 18 inches. Okay? So it's an amma. In fact, we know that the word amma means arm. From where do we know that a word amma means arm?
Up by Miriam,
Right. What does it say?
stretch out her hand.
Vatishlach es amasa
Okay.
v'tislachehu. She
Yeah.
stretched out her hand and took the basket from the Nile and brought it to her.
Pharaoh's daughter.
Paro's daughter, right? Vasya,
Yeah.
who stretched out her hand and took the basket and brought it to her. So it says Vatishlach es amasa. Amasa means her amma, her arm. Okay, Rashi gives a medrash about it that her arm stretched out many, many ammas. Okay, we demonstrated that a few times.
Yeah, it was nice. Yeah.
It's not for now. But the word amma obviously means arm. So an arm, average arm, is 18 inches. Okay, from here to here is 18 inches. But the Chazon Ish held that an amma was 2 feet.
24.
Okay, 24 inches. He held that it was larger than 18 and it had to be 24 inches. So according to the Chazon Ish, the minimum size of a pair of tzitzis would be 24 by 24. According to Avram Chaim Noah, the minimum size of tzitzis would be 18 by 18. Okay, all right. Rav Moshe has a very interesting discussion and a tshuva. And Rav Moshe says it's somewhere in between.
21.
21.5 inches. Approximately 21 to 21.5 inches. So you'll go into Eichler's or any other store that sells tzitzis, and you'll see they have tzitzis that are 18 inches,
Right.
tzitzis that are 20, tzitzis that are 22, and tzitzis that are 24. Because the largest measurement is the Chazon Ish is 24, and it shrinks a little bit. Rav Moshe recommended to buy 22s because they shrink a little bit. It'll go down to the 21 or 21.5 inch size. Okay, so when you're a little person, that's a very big size tzitzis. But when you're an average person, it's not that big. Okay, but that doesn't help us here. We need to go a step further here in our discussion. Why? Because here we're dealing with 2,000 amos. And when you start playing with 6 inches per amma, the difference is going to be between 2,000 ammas being 1,500 feet and 2,000 ammas being 15 2,000 amas being 3,000 feet, and 2,000 amas being 4,000 feet. Because if each amma is 1.5, and it's 2,000, that'll be 3,000 feet. Well, if each amma is 2 feet, it's going to be 4,000 feet. The tremendous difference. It's like a fifth of a mile difference. So the derech klal we paskin l'chumra on both sides, not to leave a tchum Shabbos even according to the Avram Chaim noise measurement, and we extended all the way l'chumra to the 4,000 amma measurement to say that that is also considered in the tchum Shabbos. The only problem is we have a measurement here in the Gemorah that says from Chamson to Tveria. So wait a minute. What? I'm sorry, I must take this call. I will be right back. This is a crucial call. I'll be right. Okay, hello. Okay, here we go. We're back. So the only thing is we have one question, and that is we still don't know. It says that Chamson to Tveria was a mill, and that's 2,000 amas, and we don't know for sure what the size of an amma is. So the Gemara wanted to say that this is to tell us that the distance from Chamson to Tveria is a mill, and that's what's letting us know, by the way. But that doesn't really help us because we still don't know how big a mill is. Okay, we can measure it. So we'll measure from Chamson to Tveria. Let's say we end up that from Chamson to Tveria is 4,000 amas. Does that mean that the Chazon Ish is correct? Let's say we measured that from Chamson to Tveria is 3,000 amas. Does that mean that Rav Avram Chaim Noah is correct? So all the Mefarshim jump on this bandwagon, and they come to the following conclusion. You can't prove anything from this. Why? Because between Chamson and Tveria, you've got a mountain. And when it comes to a mountain, how do you measure the mountain? Do you measure it on the surface and go around to the right or to the left? Or do you measure the mountain as if you're going through the mountain? So it's inconclusive as to exactly how to measure this distance. And so we're left with, you have to ask your posek, you have to ask the community posek, what should I do with tzitzis? Should I wear 18s? Should I wear 20s? Should I wear 22s, 24s? And because I go with Moshe's Shita, which is somewhat of a compromise between the two, as far as his measurements are concerned, I would say that 21 and a bit is the right measurement, but you can't get 21, so you probably have to buy a 22 in order to, shrinkage and so on, and that'll sort of obviate the situation. So this is a very interesting discussion that comes up over here, and there's a lot more on this particular topic that we could do. And in fact, I have another share which I could do with you, which is on the halacha, because it's a very interesting thing to view what the halacha in Siman Taf Reish Pei Ches says. Let me see if I can get it now. If I can do it 1, 2, 3, we'll do it right now, and we'll get it. We'll stop this share and we'll go to another share. If I can get it right now, I'm gonna try to pick it up by going to. No, I'm not going to be able to get it right now. I'll do it for next week. At the beginning of next week, we'll pick up that share with the halacha to remind us of the law between a city and all that's seen with it. So we'll see it in Yetz Hashem next time, because I'll have it front and center. Now I have to go through a whole thing in order to get it, and we're better off stopping now. Unfortunately, we're a little bit behind schedule. And next week, Yetz Hashem on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock, we're going to resume this next week. Well, listen, Rabbi Isai, next week we're starting an unbelievable statement by Rabbi Yirmiyah, and some say in the name of Rabbi Chia, about Abba, which has to do with unbelievable discussion about what Nevi'im can add to the Torah and what Nevi'im cannot add. Wow, such an interesting discussion, especially about the luchos themselves. So let's be patient and wait till next week. where the Yitzchok Rottenstein Shiur will continue. And by then we'll get the hosts straightened out too. Everything's gonna be fine. Thank you for your patience.
Okay.
And Yitzchak Hashem will continue in Yitzchak Hashem next week. Have a
And
good night, everybody.
we have
Oh.
Thursday night is Shiur.
Thursday night at
8:30.
8:30.
Thank you.
Thursday night at
8:30.
8:30.
8:30.
Pasha Shiur. Thursday night at 8:30. Okay?
8:30.